sure how well you could see that. I was investigating some rough running in here and happened to notice this clutch on this AC. Looks like it's wobbly. Don't know if you can tell. There's some movement in that. This is the original AC pump. I've only had this AC system open once when I replaced the AC condenser. And I've never had this disconnected from here. I think it's the bearing in here is shot. It's probably time to replace it. The truck has almost 224,000 miles. This is one of the fewer original parts left on here. In my spares kit, I do keep a bearing, which I think is what's wrong. I have several used AC pumps on these parts cars. So if we need to pull off a pump or the clutch, we should be able to have enough parts to do that today. It is almost 100 degrees out and sunny, so let's put this in the shop. It's much cooler in here outside of the sun. You probably couldn't tell with this running. I know the camera frame rate can play tricks on your eyes. I think the bearing inside that pulley or clutch is bad. I keep a spare bearing in my spares kit here, which I've rifled through recently to get a starter. This is what I take on the road when I go like out to Utah or someplace. This is a Pelican 1550, and I usually keep anything that could leave me stranded. So various gaskets, an alternator, U-bolts for the front drive shaft, got a couple seals. With that, I like to keep as many original parts on the car as possible just to see how many miles I can get out of them. But I want to be prepared, because if that pulley goes, my serpentine belt goes, and I can't drive the car. So this is a Santec bearing, and that is what I think is bad. I also carry the various clips and a bolt just in case it does go bad. Whether I can change that on the side of the road or have a local shop repair it and I don't have to deal with downtime waiting for a part. That's why I carry that. I don't know if I'm going to have to how this bearing is held in. I may just remove the clutch and pulley assembly off one of the other compressors. I will have to remove the serpentine belt. I think I can leave this pump in place. I just have to remove this fan shroud. It's a 10mm bolt that comes out pretty easy. I'll probably have to remove the fan. That might get in the way. I do not want to replace the pump because I just, maybe 20,000 miles ago, replaced the dryer, the condenser, and put the right amount of PAG oil and Freon in here. That was a real pain to get that the correct way, to get it as cold as possible. And it's working as good as it's going to be, so I don't want to open this system up. But that looks like it's the problem. The blue parts car out back has about 114,000 miles, I think. So that whole setup is 110,000 miles less. So that bearing and pulley clutch setup should be good enough that I could probably just swap it rather than put in a new bearing or try and press in that new bearing. I might just keep that in the spares kit. I've already gotten into this car numerous times. Big battery, a lot more power. This bolt comes out pretty easy. This, you kind of gotta bang on, but you can hear doesn't sound great. I think I should be able to pull this off without removing the pump. Otherwise, I should just be able to disconnect it and pop it up here. I was able to get this out by pulling on it. But you can see all that junk in there. I don't know what that is. It's pretty seized on. This is not cracked up though. It's a couple hours later because I made a bit of a bonehead mistake. As I was tapping this pulley off, it got kind of cockeyed, and just as I was thinking I should straighten that up, I tapped it off one more hit, and it broke the snout right off of the end of the compressor. That's where that snap ring holds in. So now I need a compressor, which I have here off of a parts car. It turned, because I was in a rush and not paying attention, it turned what should have been a quick and easy job into something slightly more involved. Changing this compressor is not a big deal, but you can't replace it without opening the system up, and you can't release the Freon out into the atmosphere. It's toxic and probably illegal. Luckily, there's a guy down the road that's, he's a shop, he's not a guy, but he was able to evacuate the AC. I drove down here like this, which you shouldn't do because the serpentine belt is off. Had no power steering, there's no water pump, but he's only a couple blocks down. Had him capture the AC. He didn't charge me anything, which is nice of him, so I'll definitely use him again in the future. And I pulled this off the parts car. This I thought was empty. There was a very small amount in there, so you know, probably shouldn't have done that. But when I tested that car when I first got it, the AC didn't work. This is a replacement pump. This is not original. It looks like some sort of cheap Chinese pump, which I'm not happy about. But you can kind of hear it. It does pump, and it doesn't appear to be leaking since there was still a little bit in there. So I guess I'm putting this on. The reason why I was just using these used parts is, one, because I'm cheap, and two, they were here, and I didn't have to wait for anything. And three, probably the most important one, is used parts that I have been buying over the past couple of years. It's 50-50 whether they work or not. It seems like they fail prematurely or they're bad right out of the box. I prefer to use used, genuine parts that came on these as long as they're working order. So I have no idea how long this AC pump's going to last. You can see on here, It's definitely not a Denso. Denso is the original manufacturer. That would have been on here. And it says CH, I assume that's China. So just an unbranded kind of piece of junk, which I expect to break in a couple of weeks, months, years, days, who knows. Let this be a lesson. If you're working on something, just take your time, and if it looks wrong, don't force it. You're just going to start breaking stuff. If I didn't have that guy down the road and this a parts car out back, this would have turned into a much bigger deal, especially if this were my only vehicle. I've owned this car for 15 years and I've done so much work to it, I get pretty complacent while working on it. And it just goes to show, if you're not paying attention, even easy stuff breaks for someone who's done. I'm not a mechanic, but I'm a DIY guy, and I've worked on this car so much I could do it with my eyes closed. I know the size of every nut and bolt, and I know how to do it. I've done it so many times. Just pay attention to what you're doing. The pump replacement itself is pretty quick. It's just 4 10-millimeter bolts, and these are held in by 8-millimeter bolts. They have O-rings on the ports to seal it. You should probably replace those O-rings. I didn't. And anytime you have this AC system open, you should replace the dryer, technically. I just did that a few years ago, and I'm not going to do it yet. I just don't have high hopes of that cheap AC compressor working. You can see the original Denso here. I checked Rock Auto real quick, and one of these Denso pumps is a little over $300. I got a feeling I'm going to end up buying one of those soon. The only other thing I'm going to do is this little bracket here that screws into the side. It's got a tab to hold this, to hold that plug. Otherwise it's just flopping. The cheap one, of course, doesn't. So I'm going to pop that on, put everything back together, and we're going to have to fill up the AC. I guess I can go down and get my AC back, but I don't want to bother that guy anymore since he did all that for free. But it's Saturday. I'm surprised he was there, and I don't know if he was actually working or just kind of messing around, so I don't want to bother him again. I keep a lot of Freon and fluids and stuff here in the shop, so just in case I need it, I have it. So we'll just pump that in. Somewhere around here I should have some Freon. I got these. I think it'll take 2. These are used. Nothing in it. There we go. Just cheap Freon, that should work. Feels cold. It's probably not as cold as it should be. It should be down in the 40s probably. I might grab another can and put it in, and we'll see what happens. I might have to let it run a little bit longer. And we're getting there. Feels cold. say that's fixed. That's pretty cold. I'm sure I could get much colder if I had the professional gauges, so I might take it to that guy and pay him to kind of top it up and fine tune it. Put in about 2 of these 12-ounce cans. I don't know what the actual specs are. I don't know how accurate that cheap little gauge is. I'm not too worried about it because I don't have high hopes for this thing working. So, not for very long anyway. It works now, but I just don't think a cheap AC compressor is going to work. I might replace it with one of these used ones, but some of them, that blue one, these came off that blue one. If you look, it looks like it's leaking. You probably can't tell, but there's some Freon, green Freon on there. So that may have been leaking. Otherwise, I would have just used that pump. That's too bad. Just gotta take your time and don't rush.